Namaste, Jai Hind, and a very happy Independence Day, even as he gets out into what's going to be a very hectic 24 to 48 hours. Not that otherwise it's not a hectic schedule. He's just agreed to give us some time to speak with us on the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and the security situation. The DGP of J&K, Shri RR Swain. Namaste. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Happy Independence Day. But even as we speak, the forces are busy trying to keep this region secure. How would you assess the situation currently?
In broad terms, I would say that while there are challenges, but we are very much in control of the things. When I say that, I'm talking about the lives of ordinary citizens in the valley of Kashmir and in large parts of Jammu goes on, and the businesses, the schools, the education, hospitals, roads, electricity, public services, they are very much alive and active. Tourism, pilgrimage, we haven't stopped any of the, there has not been any disruption in that sense of the term. So we take satisfaction of from the fact that the highly disruptive phase is over or is in the past, and we have traveled a distance which is visible, measurable, quantifiable, and therefore the overall scenario is one where a common citizen is in a position to go about his life. But at the same time, I qualified it with saying that we have challenges, and the challenges are primarily emanating from foreign terrorists. The external source of the challenge is something which has been spiked or has been ratcheted up by the adversary. So that is something which we are looking at, we are figuring it out, we are measuring it, and we are trying to also be able to, as I speak, we are designing and reconfiguring ourselves, as I say, to eventually set up a strategy and resources and people who would execute this in a manner in which there would be a visible and a substantive setback and defeat to the adversary.
One of the important aspects, Swain Sahab, is the presence of FTs in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in the Jammu region.
Right.
Now, how did they come in, and is this a different challenge altogether? I'll come to the local recruitment in a bit, the silver lining in a bit, but the FTs first.
Yeah, the number of the foreign terrorists has always been a matter of debate, discussion, because for obvious reasons. So they do not have roots here, their names, their origin, their identity, their particulars are not always available. So we have a mechanism of calculating as to how many foreign terrorists are there at a given point of time, and it is a fact that since last about 3-4 months, I think a major push was made from the side of the adversary, trying to explore every bit of gap. There are places where we have plains but which are amenable to tunnels. There are places, there are riverines which are amenable to flash floods and then gaps. There are then jungles and the forests and the snow bound areas. So it's a vast stretch of territory. So what we believe in broad terms, I think what we have understood between ourselves amongst all forces and agencies is that there has been a tremendous effort and spike. As we say, most agencies agree that across the adversary is fully packing its launch pads and trying to push in as many people as possible availing every single little gap. So taking advantage of the weather, of the fog, the forest, the cover, the foliage, the weather. There are several factors which keep changing from sector to sector. In certain parts of the year, some sectors become more amenable, and at other times of the period, there are different varying situations. So the other side, I think, has really tried to work very hard and has managed to, let's say, increase the number of foreign terrorists inside. For the first time, in last about almost 3+ decades, I think the number of foreign terrorists is almost 6-7 times more than the local terrorists. In fact, the local terrorists, as I speak, is roughly about 20 plus minus, and the assessments have been varying between agencies, but broadly speaking, we say it would be almost about 5 or 6 times more when it comes to the foreign terrorists.
Foreign terrorists.
Yes.
Now, there are two ways. One, this can be looked at, how did they get in? The other way to look at it is that they are being forced to push them in. So, is there a drop in local support, local recruitment?
Yes, you see, I mean, these are hard facts. There is no embellishment or there is no glossing over. The fact of the matter is that in 2024, 23, there was the drop in the local recruitment was very sharp. So roughly from about 150 to 200 recruitments about 3 or 4 years ago, the trend had started since last 4 years dropping southwards, but the real fall came in 2023, 22 later part, but actually 23, where from about 100 odd terrorists, it came down to 20 or less than that. So this year, for example, it has been around 5 or 6, it's a single digit, and this is certainly a different scenario. It makes a lot of difference to the security situation, and you see, no doubt there is absolutely no gainsaying that two desperados who are suicide oriented can be very dangerous and can be very harmful. But then please understand that the fear factor that comes to the public, the ordinary man is threatened more by a system, a kind of a arrangement by the adversary, where it tries to say that it is mapping, it is taking note of each citizen, each villager, each native, that if they are not with them, with their agenda and with their activities, and then they are being marked. So, and then they would be punished. That is a fear with which you cannot go to bed, you know.
Correct.
So, encountering two desperados in the jungle who you don't know, and then you know that they are lost, they are looking for, they are just trying to rule with the help of brute gun, is a different kind of a thing. But to live in a pond where every next fish is perhaps is trying to, you know, sort of is a carnivorous one who is about to attack, that kind of a fear emanating from an ecosystem which the adversary had been able to set up is something which we have very, very substantively degraded.
How did you go about doing this is my next question, because what we see is many would say, don't look at the person or the group that is pelting the stone, look at the people who are propping them up. Don't look at the people who are coming to crowd the streets, look at the people who are propping them up. There is a system in the shadows, and you're saying that you've been able to work to try and negate that system, to alleviate this basic inherent fear that you're saying in the minds of the people ki mere aaju baaju koi dekh to nahi raha hai mujhe. How did you do it?
Well, actually, you prefaced it appropriately. The point is that, you see, a year ago we said that every recruit into the terror ranks will be treated as a victim, and till such time, of course, he has actually conducted a real terrorist violent act. But otherwise, intrinsically, we try to find out as to who were behind the recruitment, who really pushed him into it. The families are poor, invariably, less resourced, educationally backward. Under such circumstances, who are the people who are in a range of supporting activities, starting from legitimizing the ideology, glorifying death, making it a shortcut for a person who is not well off and who has not made it, who has not been able to really earn a livelihood and is vulnerable, taking advantage of those vulnerabilities. Which are these people? Which are these elements within the society? Be it within the, the education system, be it within the religious endowments or the systems, or within the government, or within the local business community, whoever it could be, the entire setup or the societal institutions that surround village life or small little towns. Who are these people who are making it absolutely possible, feasible, desirable, and perhaps in certain ways making it, may I say, a compelling set of circumstances to push him to take that gun. Okay. So we found it out. I mean, we really tried to study hard, and we also, in that effort, we did not spare ourselves. In a joint effort with the Indian Army, we tried to carry out a program in which we did a lot of self-introspection. To what extent, let's say, people allege that there have been heavy-handed behavior of the army and the security forces and the police. So to what extent that has contributed, that also we factored in. Having done that, we came to the conclusion that actually the real forces which push such people into terror ranks are the ones who are part of this side of the system. So they are behind the scene. Many of them are who are pulling the strings, and they are not being held accountable. I'll tell you one example in which a father used to repeatedly come to me saying, there is a local businessman who was responsible for putting my son into it. Now he is arrested and he is rotting in the jail. I have been coming to the police again and again, and nobody does anything about him. So this was even, this went up right up to the within the army also, a very senior commander. They approached, and the LG called me up and he said, "Isko jara dekho kya hai." So we carried out an investigation, and we found out that this fellow, wedded to the Jamaat, was the one who was behind making it all possible and incentivizing it in so many ways, and creating also a narrative and an ideology in which, he was had a tentacle kind of a thing. So what I'm trying to say is that this is one incident. It's a less complicated incident. There are far more complicated incidents in which university systems had been, corrupted, in which certain acts of terrorism had been engineered. I'm talking about not only the ideology or the narrative, but the terrorist acts themselves were many times planned and executed. So an effort was made to identify individuals, institutions, mechanisms by which they earn money out of it, arranged finances to be able to sustain this. So be it in any part of any aspect of the civil society, be it the bar associations, be it the government employees associations, be it within the security police setup, be it within the imams, khatibs and the Maulavis, be it even the media, be it the school, college and university systems. A teacher would come and say that I'm so interested to teach mathematics, I'm passionate about it, but I can't teach because only 2 students or 2 teachers in the school have hijacked the entire school. And no sooner we have regular classes and regular sessions, then suddenly these people would get activated and take the entire school out onto the street to participate in stone pelting. So what do I do? So, so there are many such teachers, They were silent spectators. They had been silenced, So a vast majority of common citizens and law-abiding persons had no way of standing up to this, because the bullies were very powerful, very well connected, and had gamed the system that it looked almost impossible for the vast majority of the common citizens that isko kabhi hum वाकई में इनसे बच पाएंगे? इनकी ताकत और इनकी, is it ever possible that the vast network and the influence they have come to yield within the system, can it ever be really degraded? Can we really ever be able to stand up and be able to say that नहीं मुझे क्लास में आज पढ़ाना है, and still I will be able to survive or remain out of fear and not be harmed this way or that way? So that kind of a situation was there, and when the rule of law, the wheels of law, as I say, the long arms of the law was made to operate, gradually the degradation of the adversaries started taking place. Their influence within the system came down, and it is a virtuous cycle which came to be setting. You see, they had set in a vicious cycle, which is what, ki, as you progress, initially you will have to put 2 units of effort to get 1 unit of result. Subsequently, you put 1 unit of result to get 2 units of dividends. That was the vicious cycle which had been set by the adversary, was stopped, and in so many cases it was reversed. That led to a situation in which schools, colleges and universities have come to be operational. People go about, the tourism is there, so businesses in the downtown are open. People who thought that having a glass showcase in the front of the business would never survive, but now places are glistening. So there is a confidence which is back, not only because the gun wielding terrorists have come down, but also because the entire network, which within the business associations, school college associations, doctors associations, government employees associations, media associations, all where they had networked between themselves, that network is no longer there.
No longer there.
So they are free from that fear, that and in so many ways, you see, the judicial, the rule of law, the prosecution, the investigation, all of it has got activated. In fact, it would be a very interesting study to know that the adversary itself used to say very cleverly, after having gamed the system, used to say that ये तो खुद ही, ये तो सब जो है रूल ऑफ लॉ के बाहर हैं, ये तो मनमानी करते हैं, ये तो गोली से कार्रवाई करते हैं, ये करते. In fact, to be able to have rule of law, you need to have investigation, prosecution, adjudication, prison. For all of that to operate, our legal system presupposes that everybody should be operating below the threshold of a fear. Meaning, if I am an investigating officer at the rank of a ASI or head constable, I should be able to go to a village and be able to talk and take statements. If an investigating officer to be able to go to a village has to take a whole battalion, so how will any investigation be able? The fellow who is going to give a statement, he is mortally afraid to be able to go and depose. The prosecutor who is standing up against the arrested terrorist or his associate cannot look into his eyes. How will he ever try to prosecute? The judge who is writing the judgment, it is not exaggeration. They knew that it was all, so everybody, the entire rule of law was operating under the shadow of fear.
Fear. So you had to remove that shadow.
And they had created that shadow. It was under their shadow. So how can the tormentor, how can the person who has created the shadow of fear and terror say to the other side that the rule of law is not there and you are not following the rule of law? It is in fact during the last 3 or 4 years, you look at the judgment, a very I would say very landmark judgment I think yesterday has been passed, in which the Honorable High Court, a division bench, has said in so many words that properties pertaining to religious places, temples, etc., were all usurped and encroached by sheer, because the system had collapsed, or the fear of the gun had pervaded in such a manner. It is not that every time the gun wielding man goes to every single temple and every single religious place and says that it happens because of that network. They have only 2 gunmen. The threat that we will be able to execute you or we will be able to harm you. The rest of it is done by a tantra.
This entire fear mechanism
is perpetrated, is sort of sustained in an institutional manner is by a whole lot of other people.
Yeah.
It is those people who sustain that. He's only many a times the gun wielding fellow doesn't even have a sense as to what his gun is doing. He's only a pawn. So people who are making that gun use to break down the law and order, to break down the rule of law, to create a strike terror in the mind of the investigating officer, the prosecutor, the adjudicator, and the person who would come and try depose against the witness. All of that. Those people are different. Those people are sitting within the Advocates Association. Those people are sitting with the trade association. They are the ones who are taking call from across and shutting it down. Otherwise, which businessman would like to close his shop half a year?
Correct.
So people were. The business community was being represented by a couple of businessmen who never filed their income tax return.
But sir, are these forces, and you mentioned the Jamaat, and the Jamaat has played a very important role behind the scenes in this, and evidence proves to that. But are these people right now, have they been countered, have they been negated, or are they just silent, biding their time?
Well, honestly speaking, this is a work in progress. A 33+ year old campaign by the adversary and the success or the progress they had made to be able to undo it, push it back, clinch it in 3 years' time, as against 3.5 to 4 years' time. You see, we lost almost about a year and a half in COVID.
Yeah.
So we practically had about 3.5 years of real work. So that 3.5 against 3.5 decades is certainly not the. But you are right to the extent that many of them have gone silent, many of them are lying low, have hunkered down. But having said that, I think we have the satisfaction and we have the reassurance within the security establishment and the allied partners and the common public. It would be hard for the adversary to undo it so easily.
Let's hope on that, because confidence is very difficult to build. Fear is very easy to instill.
Yes.
Because it's the basic instinct, the most basic instinct.
Absolutely right.
So it's a constant challenge. Another challenge, sir, is the drugs issue. How much has the security system been able to counter this drugs menace? Because we've seen here at News 18 that on ground the youth are getting influenced by drugs. A lot of this frenzy was also drug induced, and the adversary or the enemy was pushing drugs into the region. And there are instances where women are also involved, either couriers or users. How effectively have you been able to cut that out? We knew drone drops coming through with bags of heroin, etc. So how much has that been able to, controlled?
The challenge of the drug can be seen from two angles. One is, of course, the victims, number of people who are affected, who are addicts, and consequently the families who are affected. That is one angle of seeing it, one way of measuring it. The other way of measuring it is that the number of seizures and the quantum of drugs that are coming, the amount of money that gets pumped back into the system after selling it in the market. They are connected, but it is a very detailed survey to know as to how much, to what extent the drug menace has really affected the society. In very quantifiable terms, in very short terms, would require some kind of a survey. I am not too sure that any such survey, scientific survey, which would give us a very accurate figure is available or not. But the anecdotal evidence that you have on the basis of, let us say, the centers where people come for treatment, de-addiction, and from the anecdotal evidence that you come to know from the society through various methods, is that it's a challenge. And people are affected, people are nervous, families, societies, communities are extremely worried and nervous about it. And but as far as the effort is concerned, see, initially even within the security establishment, people thought that the terror and the narcotics were not intersecting initially. 3 or 4 years before, I have my colleagues who were debating amongst themselves that, sir, we are not getting a clear evidence as to where they are intersecting. There is a hypothesis, but eventually in the last 3-4 years, NIA investigations, SIA investigations, and the executive district police Thana level investigations have proved it beyond any shadow of doubt that the senders from across are invariably linked with a outfit.
Outfit.
Yes.
Okay.
So they are given large chunks of narcotics as some kind of a money, a currency, and then it is pushed inside, it is smuggled inside, and then it is, part of it is consumed here, and a large part of it is sent to the hinterland for purposes of money. It has also been established beyond any shadow of doubt. See, for example, in one case, if I can recall, 6 lakhs of rupees was sent from Delhi to be paid to a former minister.
Right.
You know, and what was the purpose? The purpose was that the minister was asked to create a cell within Jammu, which is akin to Hurriyat, some kind of, you know, disaffection against the Indian state, to create some kind of a Hurriyat equivalent in Jammu. So it was a seed money which was being given. When we tried to trace the money backwards, where this 6 lakh rupee came, we found that the money came from a place or a person who was a known peddler, smuggler. And then further, when we investigated him, we found out that not only this money, several other amounts had been received by, he was both in the receiving channel of drugs and also in the reverse gear, the money receiving channel. So he was a very important node in which he used to receive, and therefore it got intersected. Usually the adversary takes care that the sending channel and the money reverse channel are usually parallel. But it cannot be, you know, you can't take that much of care because you need money. Suddenly somebody says 6 lakh रुपया देना है किसी को, तो वो पाकिस्तान को जाएगा, फिर वो ड्रोन से आएगा पैसा, या somebody will carry it in physical sense or through हवा. It's a very hard exercise. So the money is already there, their money, they have sold it, they have collected it, so they will make a phone call कि 6 लाख रुपया इसको दे दो, 10 लाख रुपया उसको दे दो. So that temptation that is there, so they commit mistakes, and that is how we have come to know. This is about the modus operandi. Our response to this, you asked, you see, what we try to do is that what we continue to try making efforts is that we do keep a watch about the victims, but we have tried to target any money that you have earned out of drug in J&K. We will not allow you to digest it.
Okay.
So while the small seizures and the peddlers, who often are also victims themselves, addict cum peddlers.
Correct.
You know, that is the modus operandi usually the case. We have tried, between ourselves we decided, we said, let's look at the terrain, the narco landscape, and see who has made money out of it, who has made ghar, who has made gadi, and made properties, or made bank balances. We have targeted them. We have selected them, and the big ones. So in the last 2.5 years, properties have been seized in large numbers. Vehicles, you know, trucks, trolleys, you know, all of that has been seized. Many of such properties have been held in Benami mode. In other, that also we are digging out. So what we are doing is also we are trying to rope in our partners like ED, Enforcement Directorate, who have sweeping powers under PMLA, because it is actually laundering. You have earned it through an illegal mechanism and you have laundered it. You know, you have converted it, you have tried to whitewash it. So ED has been brought in. We have also in certain cases requested the Income Tax Department to look into it. So it's a 360-degree approach in which we are targeting the big dealers, the ones who deal, who iska dhanda karte hain.
The big profiteers and the
big profiteers. I am sure it has had an impact. I have been told from very authentic sources that there is a serious change now to pharmaceutical drugs. That's because heroin is no longer available as freely as it was 3 years ago. You see. So there is a challenge nevertheless in Jammu side. Why? Because the drugs also come in the reverse gear from the hinterland also. You see, the entire border and the seaports and etc. As far as Valley is concerned, as far as LC is concerned, we have made an effort that people who are dealing with it and are businessmen
You crack down
and
on it.
living within the territory of J&K, they would not really be very safe and be able to digest that money.
Sir, I know time is of essence, so there are a lot of issues I'd like to speak to you with, but I know time is of essence. Your phone's been constantly buzzing too. My final question, Independence Day, one of the key aspects is respect for the uniform. I know the forces have really suffered and borne the brunt of wearing the uniform, be it the khaki or be it the military green or the fatigues of the CAPF. However, they've had tough times with their families going back to the. Has that respect returned? That whole thing of making the uniform the villain, has that changed?
It's a very, very important and extremely critical question to winning the battle. There actually the battle of narrative comes in, and these narratives mean a sea of difference in your ability to get information, in your ability to maintain order, and in your ability to actually hit at the enemy. So, at the senior level, all of us in the security architecture or establishment, be it the police or the CAPF or the army, we have having realized it in varying degrees and in various ways, we have tried to address the issue. Say for example, in police, we have tried to communicate that a mistake by us would be corrected. Access to us would be opened up. People not giving access or not accessible are would be adversely evaluated in their performance sheet. So, rank and file have understood that it's a absolutely it's a part of how they would be evaluated at the end of the day, and so much so that even police stations are being asked to divide them into beats. Small little mini police stations were headed by small teams of police officers led by junior ranking officers of ASI or sub-inspector ranks. So, when people appreciate them, we reward them heavily, and when information do not flow from certain pockets, we take notice of it, and we have not made it very harsh, but we have made it very apparent to the officer that why? Why aren't you liked? Why don't people share information with you? It's, you see, many things cannot be achieved only by passing SOPs or diktats.
Yeah.
It has to have it has to be a culture.
Yeah.
It has to be a way of life, and that comes with sustained way of supervision and leadership. Something which the senior leadership passionately believes in, and it percolates downwards. It is not looked down upon. So, when my SSPs or district police heads or the sub-divisional police officers like Deputy Superintendent of Police go around DSPs, and then they talk to their juniors and say, and they appreciate when people give information, voluntarily, green and clean information. Always we don't have to get it from, a tainted man who is penetrated inside. You can do that to a certain extent.
Correct.
You can do that to a certain extent. But to win a match, but you want to win the tournament, you have to depend on clean and green intelligence, and that can come only when what you said is the respect for that. So, it's the strategy is a combination of making it a formal evaluation parameter as well as an informal culture which we would exude, practice, believe and profess in our day-to-day lives.
Well, let's hope that bears more fruit, and salute to your forces, to your team for all the work that you're doing, and wish you a very, very happy Independence Day. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anand.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Jai Hind.